Hey guys, PrinceofMacedon here, doing a Rome Total War online battle. I command the Macedonians, and my opponent is ArmouredWalrus in command of the Romans. And you can see that we're both using historical armies again, and this is set at 15k, and I am using the Alexandrian army, the army used by Alexander the Great. Alright, so here's my general unit, that's my companion cavalry, and I have them in the wedge formation. That's the formation that they fought in, historically speaking. Then they are flanked by the Lancers, and they are supported by an archer unit from Macedon, and some peltists. And working my way left, next to my companions, I have my Royal Pikemen. They represent the Hypaspis. I got one unit of them. Then I have 6 units of the Phalanx Pikemen. They represent my my Grand Phalanx. And the Phalanx is protected on the left with another peltist unit. And next to them, well, behind them, I have another squadron of companions, but they represent my Thessalian cav, because they were armed exactly like the companions, so they will represent my Thessalians. Then there's my Greek cav, and they will represent the Greek allied horse contingent. And finally, I have my Cretan archers, who are already firing at the enemy. And this battle is opened up with our peltist. This is our skirmish phase. He has 2 units of Velites right there. And instead of attacking my peltist, he's attacking my my Grand Phalanx, which is a good idea, because his Pre-Marian army won't have much of a chance against my pikemen without weakening my infantry. Anyways, my opponent has 2 squadrons of Equites, and one of them is in range of my Cretans, and my opponent didn't realize that because he was too busy focusing on his Velites. Alright, then he has 5 units of Hastati, 5 units of the Principes. In the very back, he has 4 units of Triarii, and his general is in his back right Triarii unit right there. And that was a good place for his general, because that means I can't charge his general outright. Alright, so my opponent's using a Polybian army, and I am using the older Alexandrian army. This is the early Alexander the Great army, the one he used in his earlier campaigns. And in the span of a minute, our peltists are out of jabs. And we both have the same idea, we're going to charge our peltists into each other. If you look at his Velites, they look like wannabe berserkers. Anyways, since the peltist action's happening right next to my army, I'm going to support my peltists with my cav on both wings here. There I'm launching my Lancers. I don't want to waste the energy of my companions just yet. Alright, now my opponent's bringing up his front line of Hastati. And seeing that, I'm going to charge with my peltists just to disrupt his formation. Now I've got my guys in Phalanx formation in the back, except for my Royal Hypaspis. I'm going to keep them loose so that they can charge whenever. But I'm going to lead with my rightmost Phalanx Pike unit. So I'm going to advance in an echelon formation. There go my peltists, but just as a route, that's when my first set of pike hits his Hastati line. So one by one, I'm peeling them off my line, and I'm gonna stab them right into his front line there. So my opponent, he needs to get around my phalanx, but I'm using my skirmish units and my cav to support my wings to prevent such a maneuver by his more numerous infantry. Alright, now I've got my right wing going down around his entire army. I got the Lancers leading the way, as they would have done. Alright, on the left, my Thessalians have hammer and anviled his Hastati on the very left right there. And you can see his Hastati line is breaking. Alright, so with my general unit right there in wedge, I'm looking for a target. And finally I found one. I'm using my Royal Pikes to fix his I think those are his Principes. And with that, I launched a hammer and anvil strike on his right. Now he's bringing up his Triarii, and I'm going to run out of there. But you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting all my guys in motion. That's what you want to do when you're controlling this kind of army. So now I have reached his second line, and right here with my Thessalians, I plow right through his second line on the very left flank. Alright, now I've got my general back there, see him in wedge? See that gap between his Triarii? That's enough room for my companions to squeeze through and drive right through that gap and into his Principes. And that's what Alexander would have done. He would have looked for gaps in the enemy's formation, and he would have driven right through it. So the Alexandrian army was very mobile, unlike the later Macedonian armies that this Polybian army would have met. So I'm using a more finesse-style Macedonian army. And that was kind of a weak charge, but I had nothing else to do with my general, so I launched that really quick and weak charge. But I'm going to pull back out and look for another target. But ideally, I would have wanted to charge this general unit right away. If you look at the very back, you can see my light horsemen. They are running down the routing Roman units, and that's what Alexander would have done. He would have chased down the enemy for as long as possible. And right here you can see the enemy's general right there. But it's not going to be my general that gets the pleasure of killing them, it's going to be my Thessalians. As for my general, he's going to continue his hammer and anvil strikes on the enemy. But now the general's retreating. But I guess the biggest weakness of this Macedonian army is that there wasn't really much of a reserve system. Like, Alexander used reserves at like Gaugamela. He used the Greek allies, their hoplites, in the very back. But typically it was just one long line. And if you broke at one point, then it would have almost fallen apart for certain. But that's why you needed the cav and the skirmish units to support the phalanx. These later Hellenistic kingdoms, they didn't have the kind of cavalry support that Alexander the Great would have had. Plus, these later kingdoms, they didn't have the kind of military leadership as shown in the early days of Philip II and Alexander the Great.